a National Progressive Town Hall meeting with Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. She represents the 7th District of Washington. She is the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the senior whip of the Democratic Caucus, serves on the House Budget Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, the House Education and Labor Committees, as well as a number of subcommittees. Her website is Jayapal, Jayapal.house.gov, and the Twitter handle is Rep Jayapal. That's the official one, or Pramila Jayapal, the campaign one. And Representative Jayapal, welcome back to the program. It's so great to have you with us again.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be with you as always.
Thank you. And just for people who might have just tuned in, Representative Jayapal will be with us for the whole hour taking your calls. The phone number is 202-808-9925. Representative Jayapal, we're seeing this gun violence epidemic in the United States, where it seems like we're averaging 2 gun deaths an hour in America, and we've had, I mean, literally, there's not a day goes by that there's not a mass shooting, or at least not a week goes by that there's not, close to a week's full of mass shootings. What do we do about this? How is Congress reacting to this? I'm hearing that John Cornyn and the Republicans are saying, well, yeah, we'll do a few little symbolic gestures, but nothing really serious. Is that going to stand?
Well, Tom, you're exactly right. This is a national crisis. It has been a national crisis for some time. We have had so many of these gun violence, mass shooting events, mass murder events. And, everyone says thoughts and prayers afterwards, and then the Republicans refuse to move on the issue. The House has already passed a background checks bill, a significant background checks bill, but just last week in the Judiciary Committee, we had a 10-hour hearing on a whole slew of gun bills that we will bring to the floor probably tomorrow, actually. They're going to the Rules Committee today. And it's everything from tackling ghost guns to limiting the number of rounds in a magazine, because why should we have these ridiculous numbers, 100, 150 rounds that anybody can use to shoot multiple people? It's just absurd. And so there will be a bill limiting the number. There is a bill to raise the age to own a gun to 21. As you know, a couple of the mass shootings recently, both Uvalde and Buffalo, the shooters were 18 years old. And so I think this is an important piece of it as well. And then we are still working on the votes to bring an assault weapons ban to the floor. We are just a couple of votes short on that, unfortunately. And so hopefully we can bring that. Now, these are all bills that are going to pass the House this week. But you're right that the Senate is talking about a much less expansive package. And I think we'll just have to wait to see what happens. Senator Chris Murphy, who has been a real champion ever since Newtown, is leading that discussion. I know that they want to try and get something bipartisan done. I will tell you that I think it's important that we get something done so it doesn't seem like we're stuck. But I think we should also be clear that the kinds of measures that they're talking about are important, but they're not the expansive pieces that will stop the kind of violence that we're seeing in the country.
Yeah, based on the experience of other countries like Australia or New Zealand or the United Kingdom or Norway that have had, dealt with this. I completely get it. I'm also curious, and then we'll pick up our calls, if I may, and have one more question with you. Your thoughts on this election? I mean, we're looking at November here, and I'm frankly concerned that the forces of what I call fascism are rising in America, is this Trumpism, and that if the Republican Party gets control of Congress, it's going to be a really tough ride to the 2024 election. What can we be doing, average citizens be doing to help ensure that Democrats can hold their majority in the House and Senate this fall?
Well, the first thing is we've got to believe that we can win. Republicans lose elections and then insist that they've won, Tom. Democrats win elections, and before we've even had the next election, we're saying we're going to lose. And so I think we need to be very, very positive about the reality in many of these swing districts across the country where we have very good incumbent candidates. That said, we also have to be clear that we need to do a couple of big things to make sure we are addressing the needs of voters today. And we know that inflation is an issue for people. We have to talk about the profiteering of these corporations that are contributing about 60% of the increase in the CPI and in inflation is due to companies, oil companies profiteering, other big corporations profiteering off of this moment. And so we're trying to pass a number of bills around price gouging in Congress, but we also are pushing the president to use his executive authorities to do things like cancel student debt, because that would lower costs for a huge number of Americans, or to raise the threshold for the overtime cap. That would help, again, tens of millions of Americans with higher wages. And so those are some of the things that we still need to do. And we're pushing to try and get a scaled down, unfortunately, scaled down reconciliation package passed that can get 50 votes in the Senate. Even though we passed it in the House, we have 2 Democratic senators that we still need.
A more modest Build Back Better. Yeah. Well, that's great. And hopefully we can make all this stuff happen. Let's pick up some phone calls here. James in Salt Lake City, Utah. You are on the air with Representative Jayapal.
Thank you for taking my call, Representative Jayapal. My question as a Democrat is, obviously, keep it short. Very frustrated with what's going on. But what happens if this situation with Republicans results in nothing? Which I hate to be a pessimist, but not expecting much. What can we do as Democrats to actually affect some real change in regards to the gun issue? Because everyone I talk to is outraged, and we need to tap into this right now where we have it. Not let the Republicans just wait us out basically until the outrage is gone, and then they can go back to normal.
Yeah, we need, exactly right, James. We got to keep up the pressure from across the country. So everyone who's listening, to call your senators, in particular, if you're in a Republican state, to make sure you're calling and keeping up that pressure, to write letters to the editor, to do everything we can from the grassroots to keep the pressure high. And unfortunately, James, we're seeing these shootings happening almost every day or every other day. We find another one happening. And I think it's outrageous that anybody would say we have to get used to this. This is just the way it is. It is not just the way it is. It's why we're passing our package of bills on the House floor, to keep the pressure up and to say, these are the things that other countries have done in the wake of one mass shooting. The UK did it after a major shooting. New Zealand, Australia did it after a major shooting. But we have continued to let this happen. So you're right, got to keep up the momentum. It means both the grassroots organizing and, of course, we are pushing here in Congress. And hopefully we can make the Republicans recognize the deep shame we should all be having as a country that we are